If you're watching this video, it's because you want to know more about the IRS Fresh Start Program. Today, I'm going to debunk all the myths about the program, tell you the 3 things it's really about, and tell you how to actually solve your tax problem once and for all. Let's start with what the Fresh Start Program is and isn't. The Fresh Start Program isn't actually a program at all. In 2011 and 12, the IRS made a series of changes on how they collect past due tax debt from taxpayers. These changes were made through a string of IRS news releases. It wasn't through an act of Congress or through rewriting of a tax code. It was literally just a few news releases and then some written guidance about those releases. These announcements have since been referred to as the Fresh Start Program, but really it was just an initiative by the IRS to make it easier for taxpayers to deal with their tax debt. In theory, that's it. There was no magical program announced. It was simply a change in IRS policy. Okay, so what are these announcements or policy changes? There are basically 3. And I'll tell you what they were and whether they're still in effect. Number 1, the IRS made changes to their lien filing and withdrawal procedures. The IRS used to file liens if you owed more than $5,000. This was increased to $10,000. Keep in mind, this was done 10 years ago, and we all know with inflation and the cost of living, $10,000 is a lot less now than it was a decade ago. And keep in mind that the IRS can still file liens even if you owe less than $10,000. It's just guidance that suggests $10,000 as the threshold. The IRS also made it easier to withdraw liens. And by easier, I mean they created a form to have the process done. But you still need to qualify to have the lien withdrawn, and that's super difficult to do. Now, one of the good things that did come out of the Fresh Start Initiative is if you owe less than $25,000 and enter into a direct debit installment agreement, basically you agree to pay it off in a certain amount of time and you let the IRS take the money directly from your bank account, you can prevent the filing of the lien or have a previously filed lien removed. Number 2, the IRS modified the in-business streamlined trust fund installment agreement. So this change was specifically for businesses with payroll debt, aka trust fund debt. Previously, this type of installment agreement was limited to businesses with $10,000 of tax debt, and the change increased it to $25,000. Businesses had 2 years to pay it off. This program still exists, but few businesses qualify for it because many have tax debt over $25,000. Now, if you just owe income tax debt, there are other installment agreements available, and the type of installment agreement you need is going to depend on a few different things: how much you owe, your ability or inability to repay the tax debt, and how long the IRS has to collect from you. Depending on these things, you may qualify for a streamlined installment agreement, a partial pay installment agreement, or another type of installment agreement. But all of these options have been changed and modified multiple times since the Fresh Start Initiative, and a lot of the guidance from 10 years ago is simply outdated. Number 3, this is the big one. The IRS made changes to their IRS Offer and Compromise program. Many companies market the Offer and Compromise program as the Fresh Start Program, or maybe they say you can settle your tax debt for pennies on the dollar. What they're really talking about is the Offer and Compromise, which is a way to settle your tax debt with the IRS. The biggest change from the Fresh Start Initiative was how the IRS calculated your future income potential. The IRS wants to know that it's in their best interest to settle the debt, so they want to try and determine how much money you're going to make in the future. The IRS revised its offer criteria to reduce how far in the future they look. They made some other changes as well, including allowing you to pay your federally backed student loan debt, your delinquent and state local taxes, and give you a bit more money to spend on allowable living expenses. Now, there are other changes to the program that had to do with income limits and how much tax that you could have, but all of those changes are no longer up to date, so I'm not going to go over them here. The biggest takeaway is that it is possible to settle your IRS tax debt, but not everyone will qualify. And that's it. That's the Fresh Start Program or initiative. There's no magic bullet or mystical program to settle your tax debt for pennies on the dollar. But there are ways to reduce what you owe and to get the IRS off your back so you can move on with your life. I hope this video answers your questions about the Fresh Start Initiative. If it didn't, or if you're ready to start fixing your tax problems today, click the link in the email or give us a call to book your free consultation with a tax attorney.